All right, good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for joining us today. My name is Brian Howell, and I head up the developer strategy team for applications at Oculus. And I'm here today to talk to Maureen Fan, who is the CEO and co-founder of Baobab Studios. So, welcome. Thanks for joining us today. Thank you all for coming. So, before we get started, Maureen had a little tidbit that she wanted to share with us today. So, why don't you introduce it?
We're just going to show a trailer of the full-length Asteroids. It hasn't been released yet. It's going to be released in December, so I want to give you a quick preview of what that's going to be about.
All right. So, the last time I saw you, we were at dinner, and I was about to go on paternity leave, and you were about to win an Emmy. So I wanted to ask you what that was like and what it meant to you.
It was amazing. Well, for VR, we have a lot of film festivals, right? Sundance, Tribeca, and Cannes. But Emmy's amazing because everybody watches television. So just to be honored at that level was just really amazing and a huge honor. But to get there, besides doing a lot of networking, which is also very important for winning awards, Invasion is one of the top downloaded VR experiences across all the headsets, so I think that definitely helped to make sure that people could see it. Mm-hmm. But specifically, they said that the part about the bunny actually coming to sniff you, and then also how we directed the viewer's eyes in Invasion, they felt was important for moving the fields of interactivity in VR forward.
Interesting. So I think winning awards is great, but I'm really curious to understand how you actually got to that point. So this all started, you told me a story about how the first time you got into Sundance. Maybe you can walk me through that.
So we missed the deadline for Sundance, but I still wanted to be there, so I ended up showing up and bringing the headset and going to every party and forcing everyone to watch our experience of Invasion. But it worked, because then the next year, Shari, who heads up the Sundance curation for VR, knew of us then afterwards and commented on how persistent and hustling we were and how that really helped her realize who we were and then remember us the next year. So the point is to always be hustling.
And make good content.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's important as well, yes.
It starts with a good story, and then
yes.
The Emmys fall out of that. So, I think awards are great, but I'm really curious to learn more about how you're building and growing your business in VR right now. Like, what are the things that keep you up?
I think something really important is just lasting for as long as possible, because most technologies have that normal, the hype cycle, the trough of disillusionment, hockey stick back upwards. And the question is how long the trough is going to last for, because that's where I believe we are. And for a lot of people who say that they're confused about why VR is not 1 billion people already right now, it's because of that natural cycle. And the really good venture capitalists didn't ask about whether or not VR is going to be here, because they all believe that VR is going to become a thing. The question was, how long is it going to take before it becomes a thing, and are you too early? And instead of saying, oh, VR is here, and getting all excited about it, I just took a more practical approach and told them that I thought it was going to take a long time, and this is how I'm going to last and keep my burn rate low, and this is how I'm not going to use all the money right away, hire a ton of people, create lots of content right away. I was going to make sure that I learned with the market. So that's what I'm always thinking about. When is the market going to come, and what is it going to take for VR to to become a huge mass market. So I was really excited about the announcement this morning with the goal for $1 billion. But I also think it's really important right now, if you are here early, that means you can get a lead ahead of people who join VR later, which is why it's important to experiment as much as possible now when there are fewer people, so you can just put the things out there and then get a lot of feedback and data back, and you can learn that and then put out your next experience and take all those learnings and put it into the next one. So I think it's a great time for experimentation.
So maybe we can talk about that a little bit. You mentioned taking some of the learnings from the early lessons in VR. What are some of those that you can share?
So Eric is my co-founder, and he wrote and directed all 4 of the Madagascar films and also Ants. And when he first came into VR, he says that he now looks back and thinks that he was too cocky. He's like, I understand this empathy thing because film's all about empathy. So he thought it would be a piece of cake. And he now admits that if we had created Invasion the way he originally planned to create Invasion, it would have been a disaster. And he, by putting people into the headsets, he learned about what needed to be different. So, for example, there's that part in Invasion where the spaceship comes out from behind the trees, and he thought, oh, I can create amazing dramatic tension there and wait and build up the music and wait a long time before the spaceship comes out. But we noticed that people were looking 180 degrees off axis by the time it came out because they didn't necessarily trust their senses. And like, I hear something, where is it? Even though it's spatialized. So we realized we had to shorten that pause up a lot. And we were surprised by how much people believe that that bunny was real. They would try to pet her, and it's not like breaking the fourth wall in film right now. So people really loved this character and felt like they needed to take care of Chloe the bunny. And so we thought, the first time we came out, there were no controllers yet. So all you could do is stand there and maybe move around to be a bunny shield between the aliens and the bunnies. But by the time the controllers came out, then we said, hey, people really wanted to help Chloe in the first in Invasion. Can we give them the ability to actually help and do something for these characters? And so Asteroids, which you just saw, that showed, a part of it showed at Sundance. And that's when we gave you the ability to be a character, and you can actually help the aliens in their journey and their quest to go through this asteroid field. And you actually have a mini character arc in it too. So not only do the characters have an arc, if you start off as a menial task robot and they don't respect you at all. If you help out enough and do the right things, then by the end they respect you, they turn to you, they bow to you, and you're a valued member of their crew. So we thought, hey, we can use some of the interactivity and take advantage of the real-time game engine in a different way.
That's really interesting. So when you were talking through marrying creative with data, you were telling me a story earlier where when you work with creative people, they have strong visions and they like to share them with you. You come from an interesting background in the way you apply data to making decisions about the content that's being created. And so you said you brought people in so you could observe their reactions. How did the creatives on your team take to that, and what was it like influencing them?
Honestly, they were really scared in the beginning, and this was the same at Zynga. There was always a rift between the people from the traditional gaming industry and the people who came in from web, because people from web use a lot of data, and creatives from the gaming industry would say, no, I'm the artist, and people don't know what they want. I know what they want, and I'm gonna show them with my vision. It's not about not having a vision, but sometimes what you create, they may not actually want. So we always say you're not making experiences necessarily for yourself that you love, though we want to hire in people who really love the content that we're creating, but you're creating for the people out there. So instead of letting the person who is the loudest in the room or the most senior person in the room always make the decisions, instead we should let the audience in a way make the decisions. So when people come in and try out our stuff, we see their feedback and their reaction, and you may learn that you're completely wrong and you change everything. And I think this is a way to speed up the learning process in VR, because rather than spend 5 years creating something not knowing if it's gonna do well, like a animated film, and then just put it out there and hope that it does well, you can get that feedback early and make the adjustments. But there was definitely resistance because they're afraid that it's like a score. Am I gonna do poorly? And if I do poorly and get a bad score, does that mean people are going to think poorly of me? And it's getting people to realize that it's not a score to judge them, it's a tool that they can use to make their stuff better. And so now they all want to watch all the user tests.
That's really fascinating. So what's funny to me about that is it's very different than the data you would have gotten at Zynga, right? It's not coming out of an analytics pipeline. It's watching humans, which feels very VR to me. So you bring people in.
Yeah, we bring people in. Either we bring people in or we go to enough festivals that we experiment on the festival audience, and you have thousands of people to come through, and I make sure that my team members all go to man the booths. And part of it is so that it's free and I don't have to pay for extra volunteers because it's not being cheap right now. But it's also because they get to see the reaction of the audience to their content. It both gives them a sense of pride, but also forces them to see how people are reacting to it. So then they come back, they got the feedback, and then we change the content itself.
That's really interesting. So I want to take a step back to how you built this business. Anybody who would take a look at your website and see who your advisors are would be impressed. And I was. And I'm really curious if you could tell me a little bit about how you built that network of supporters that helped shape the company.
It was through all my previous jobs, honestly. My animation professor at Stanford, she told me, you don't have to know what you want to do in life. You just have to make sure that whatever you do it really well. So I was a UI designer first, and then a usability engineer, and that's why I love getting users in and seeing what they do because of my background. But she said, everywhere you go, if you do a really good job, the people at those companies will respect you for your work ethic, and they'll come out of the woodworks to help you later on. So I met my co-founder, Eric Darnell, through Glenn Entis, who's the co-founder of PDI DreamWorks Animation, and he was also Electronic Arts CTO. He introduced me to Eric. So he became my mentor at Zynga. He was consulting there. I immediately identified him as a person who I wanted as my mentor. At first he said no. He said he was too busy because he's retired, and I just persisted and wore him down.
So I think that's incredibly important. Most people, when told no about being a mentor, I mean, I would probably hide. So your response was to do what?
Just persist. One thing he said, he's like, I'm retired and my wife needs me, not to work as much. I said, I'm going to become best friends with your wife. And then now I'm good friends with his wife. But I told him what I was going to do. And so he just be there at all times. But he introduced me to Eric because he hired Eric into PDI DreamWorks Animation. And Larry Cutler I met because when I was deciding whether or not to go to business school versus going straight to Hollywood, I emailed everyone in the Stanford alumni database that had anything to do with entertainment, like all 5 of them, and they gave me feedback, and Larry was one of the people. He was at Pixar and then DreamWorks. He told me not to go to business school. I didn't listen to him, but we kept in touch, and so that's how it all started. And then Glenn Entis knew Alvy Ray Smith, the co-founder of Pixar. So he introduced us to Alvy. Alvy straight up said to me via email, it's unlikely I'm going to be your advisor because I don't believe in VR and I hate games. And I was like, just let me meet you. And I met him, put the Gear VR on him, and then afterwards he's like, I'm sold. I'm ready to do it. And then he introduced me to Glenn Keane, who did Aladdin, Little Mermaid, Pocahontas. And so that's kind of how it all happened. And some people from business school, and my business school classmates all became VCs. And so they helped me learn how to fundraise. So, and Gavin, who at Comcast Ventures led my Series A, worked with me at Zynga where he was on Farmville. So he told the people that, he's like, this girl's crazy. She'll just figure it out, give her money. So it was very helpful.
That was amazing.
It's okay.
And the reason why I wanted you to walk through that was because I think it lends a little bit into the way that you work, which is that you network and build relationships, and you continue to build those relationships over time. I was actually curious about how that impacted your ability to work with Hollywood. So we've seen some major Hollywood stars and music industry stars work with you on projects, and I wanted to understand how you made that happen, because it seems hard.
Hollywood is a very interesting industry, and it is about who you know. We received investment for our Series A from, on the Hollywood side, Peter Chernin, also Sherry Redstone, who is a vice chairwoman, I think, of Viacom, owns Paramount, and also Liz Murdoch of the Murdoch family. So these names all helped tremendously. And Comcast, NBC Universal, also owning Universal. So that really helped with connections in terms of getting us in through the agencies or just connected to people. Chernin even lets us use their lawyers for free, and lawyers are very expensive, so it's very helpful. So they help us network in, but also this amazing head of content, his name is Kane Lee, and he just knows everybody in Hollywood. So he just takes a very personal approach and just try to get everyone into the headset. He just hustled down there. And for example, John Legend, he had been looking for a VR project apparently to work on for a long time, but he didn't find one that he really enjoyed, a story. But he really liked the new piece that is coming out called Legend of Crow, formerly known as Rainbow Crow, because it's about activism in a way. It's about using your celebrity to do good for the world. And he's a huge social activist, so he was really inspired by this theme. And also it's about diversity and acceptance of yourself and others, which is why we have all female and minority cast members for that one. So he liked the mission of that. And then for Elizabeth Banks, she was in a headset and she loved it. And she likes being able to work with well-known names. And she knows that Eric directed, Sharon Stone, Woody Allen, Gene Hackman, all those people. So she felt comfortable with him. And also it helped that Invasion did really well too. So it's just knowing people, having a name, and also hustling and making sure that they get in the headset.
Yeah. So you've built a great studio, an early studio in VR, and we are moving into based on some of the announcements this morning, a new phase of VR where we're going to bring more headsets to more people. What were your thoughts about this morning, and how will that maybe impact the way you're looking at your future projects?
I was really excited about the announcement this morning, especially the 1 billion thing, because for us VR creators out there, for us to be able to continue making more content, there needs to be money coming in, and money requires that there are lots of people watching your content. So it was very exciting. I was really excited about the Go headset, because since the beginning of VR, it's always using the mobile phone or the PC. They're devices that weren't made necessarily for VR, and now we have a native VR headset, something that's created specifically for VR and optimized for VR, so I think that's going to be really good. And I'm excited about, besides this headset that comes out, the iterations that come after that as it continues to improve. So we're going to put it out, see how it does, make some changes, and keep on making it better. But I'm also excited that, the phone is for the phone, and it's great that it also can also allow for VR, but the pure VR UX that doesn't have maybe like phone calls coming in or anything like that will be really exciting.
So when you're thinking about your next projects, I was curious if you could share a little bit more about, as you consider these new devices and new markets, like how do those ideas evolve at your place?
We oftentimes get asked if the content we create are film or games, and our thinking of like what to call VR has evolved over time. Because I used to say, oh, it's something between film and games, but Eric just really didn't like that because he feels like it's its own medium. So there's an analogy that you guys might have heard that I've used, which is there's a little girl crying on a park bench, and if she's crying on a park bench in a movie, you feel really bad for her, but you're not going to get out of your theater seat to do something about it. If it's in a game, you're going to talk to the little girl, but your motivation for doing so is maybe to fulfill a quest, to win, to get to the next level. And if it's in real life, you talk to her because you genuinely care about her and are trying to help her. And we believe, at least Baobab's vision, is that VR has the potential to have the empathy of film, the agency of games, and the motivation of real life. So you have these bigger than life stories where you care about these characters. Now you can do something about it, but you do it because you care about them. So we think thinking about it in that way is something different from all these other mediums and something that no other medium allows you to do. So besides trying to achieve that creative vision, like putting you as a character inside the space and giving you a role to play so that you're even more immersed, there's also this belief that we need universally appealing content. And hardcore games and documentaries were made for VR. They're perfect for VR, but I think to get it to the super mass wide market, there needs to be content that bridges between smaller markets. And we're really excited about creating characters that you can fall in love with, ones that transcend mediums, and you just want to keep coming back to watch these characters and these stories, ones that are relatable and appealing to both your really young daughter to grandma and everything in between.
So I think that's the kind of the thread that I see in this, which is human stories that resonate with people and your persistence. So we have about 30 seconds left.
Okay.
What last thought would you like to share with us?
Probably the mission of the company, which is to inspire you to dream. The reason why I care about this is I feel people have so much more potential within them than they realize. And if you just realized that you had that potential, you would actually go after it. And I, in this weird way, believe that animation and VR does this the best, because animation does bring out your childlike sense of wonder. And when you were 5 years old, you thought you could do absolutely anything. And I want people to feel that. And that's necessary for VR right now, because right now a lot of people are writing manifestos. Everything I just said, you should just ignore. Everything I said, because right now it's too early to be writing rule books. You should try to disprove everything I just said and experiment, because someone's going to create something sweet and awesome that's going to be like the Zelda of the Switch and get everyone to buy VR. And I'm excited about you guys making that happen.
Thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah.